Well, first off, it's great to see you all again, right? So, no, we're excited about Matt being here, and this is, we met with the team last night and introduced Matt, and then Matt's been meeting with all the pitchers individually. He's been studying a lot of their videos, and obviously from recruiting over, the last 5-6 years, he knows pretty much all of our guys. He's seen a lot of them and recruited some of them, and it's not like we're starting over here. So glad to have Matt. Tough time of year to be changing jobs. We're happy for Coach Johnson and his new position and the opportunity that he had put in front of him. He had a tough decision to make, and honestly, it was very hard on him. But we felt like that being able to go out and get someone like Matt, that we're not going to skip a beat. So feel fortunate to get Matt to, come over at this time of year. It's, like I said earlier, it's hard when you have a wife and 3 kids and things are going pretty good. And, Wake Forest has done a great job with the last 4 or 5 years, and Matt's been there for 4 years. And if you don't know a lot about Wake Forest, they play in one of the smallest Division I ballparks in the country. And, I think that you always have to, people will say this and that or whatever. I think they hit 106 home runs there a couple, 3 years ago when they were within maybe one out of getting to the College World Series when Florida beat them in the Super Regional, I think, in Game 3. It was a pretty good series, obviously. So, but Matt has a reputation out there nationally to be real innovative, a very good teacher, developer of young pitchers. There's a lot of guys across the country that want that type of pitching coach, and we feel like, what's been going on here the last few years, that, like I said earlier, this is just a smooth transition for us, and we're excited to get Matt rolling.
Want to go ahead and start the question, or
I'm ready. On my end, I'm just really excited to be here, and the opportunity obviously is fantastic. And I want to thank Mr. Yurchek and Coach Van Horn for allowing me to have this opportunity to coach at Arkansas. It's always been a place that I've looked at and admired from afar, and some of the things that have happened here over the last 17, 18 years that Coach Van Horn has been here. It's really been something incredibly special, and just to get to be a part of that now is a great honor, and I'm obviously looking to keep things going in the right direction on the field.
Dave, how many guys do you consider for the job? I mean, how tough I'm sure there was a lot of interest, and maybe both y'all could, who initiated the contact, kind of who called who first?
Well, to answer your first of 3 questions there, let me see here. There's probably 5 or 6 guys that kind of jump out at you a little bit, and, the way the process is now, and, obviously all these guys had jobs that were interested and that are on kind of the short list. And, so I was contacted by, agents, lawyers, suggesting, their clients. As soon as I realized and got Wes to kind of tell me that, I started sensing it. At first I didn't think it was going to happen 3 weeks out. And I told Wes, hey, why don't you just go ahead and take that interview at Seattle? Let's get this moving on a little bit. And it kind of went on, and I thought it was over. And then Minnesota came in, and we had another conversation. That's when it kind of hit me, hey, this could happen. So then I started, thinking a little bit, and then actually called Wes in and started picking his brain, and then trying to read him at the same time. Hey, if you were to leave, who are some guys that you like? Matt was one of them, obviously, and but yeah, there were 5 or 6 that I was considering, and then but Matt was at the top of the list, and basically just obviously hated to do it. Honestly, contacted his head coach and said, I want to talk to Matt, and as you know, I lost my pitching coach, and he was great. Because you never know how that's going to go. In the summer it's a little easier, but in the middle of the season it's tough. And I mentioned that to the players last night. It's tough for a coach to leave in the middle of summer, or in the middle of the season, right? we call this the middle of our season because it's the end of a break, and you committed all these kids and recruited them, coached them all fall, and then you leave. It's tough. So, but Matt was the guy that we wanted from the beginning. Got him in here, and showed him around, and it went well.
The relationship that you both have with Tony, how much did that play into, getting you here and just the conversations that went on there?
Well, I'll start it real quick because I called Tony. I called Tim Jamison, and Tim Jamison and I coached against each other in the Big 12 for a few years, and I spent about a month with him in the summer of 2011 with Team USA. He was actually the head coach, and I was an assistant, and just really liked him and trust him, and he had nothing but great things to say about Matt, so that was big for me. And then, Tony, kind of the same thing, and they played together a little bit. They're around the same age, and Tony being a first-time head coach and being a first-time head coach at an SEC school program, he wanted to get a head coach if he could to be his pitching coach. Someone that had that experience could help him a little bit. And I think if it hadn't worked out, then Matt would have had another decision to make. Because I think Tony would have liked to have had him because he trusts him and he knows what he can do and knows what he's done. So it meant a lot. You always want to you do the best you can to try to get the most information out of people to find out things you don't know 100% about people. So it was big for me.
Matt, just from what you know of Wes's approach and yours, just kind of what are similar and what differences do you think that you have that you'll bring to the program?
I think me and Wes have some similarities. I think we're a little bit different in the way we're going to apply some of the uses of data that that are used here, whether it be TrackMan, Rapsodo, or any of the ball tracking systems, or and how we're going to use video and how we're going to communicate to the players. I think that the main difference is the messaging will probably be something that's a little bit different because I'm different than Wes. But I think the content is fairly similar, so I think it should be a pretty seamless transition for our pitchers. And then to answer your question about Tony, it was really helpful to have somebody that had kind of been on the inside of the program before, and somebody that I'm as close with as I am with Coach Vitello. And it's when you're deciding whether or not you're interested in something, it's always good to try to pick the brains of people that have had experience. And Coach Jamison and Coach Vitello both have had a good amount of experience with Coach Van Horn, and it made it a real easy decision for me.
Matt, he's talked a lot about the timing not being ideal. I wonder how difficult it was for you to make this decision, at this point in the year. And then for Dave, I think you made a similar move to Nebraska around this time of the year. I mean, how sympathetic does that make you to when coaches are making these moves?
I thought it's an incredibly difficult decision because you have some roots in the place that you're at, and usually when things are going well when you're at a school, there's not a real urge to leave because you have those relationships with the players and the coaches on the staff, and your family is happy with where they're at. It's always a tough decision. A place like Arkansas makes that decision a little bit easier because it's a destination job for a lot of people, and one for myself, obviously, that something that I've always looked at as a place that I would love to coach, and so that made it a little bit easier. But the relationships and the players and the relationships with the staff is probably the things that I would miss the most. I'll miss the most about Wake and why it was a tough decision.
Man, what's your take? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Sorry.
You want me to answer?
Yeah.
I was sympathetic because I've done it twice. One was from junior college to Division II. It worked out because we ended up winning a national championship at the Division II school. But I can honestly say the first month I was asking myself, did I make the right move? And then when I left Northwestern State, and the best team that I knew that we were going to have there, it was my fourth year, and went to Nebraska, and it was 62 when we left, and when we got out of the car in northern Missouri, it was like 25. I was questioning, I had degrees, that is. But it was just hard. It's hard on the family. It's hard on everybody. It's hard on the kids. And, you've recruited those kids, and you bring them in, and, you're asking them to trust you, and then you leave them. It's pretty tough. So I sympathize with what he's going through, and it's going to happen again because they're going to hire somebody, and then somebody else might have to hire somebody. So you know, as long as professional baseball is going to start dipping down into college and, you know, kind of recruiting and offering our coaches, because our coaches do a great job and they can teach maybe better than some of the professionals. I truly believe that, because they have experience with these young guys maybe that some of those coaches don't have. This is going to happen more and more, I think, as time goes on.
Hey, Matt, what was the reaction like from the players, and what's that building process like now with you and trying to get those pitchers ready to go?
Are you talking about the players at Wake or the players here?
Players here last night when you met with
Oh,
them.
really positive. I had great conversations with all the pitchers, and I think the building process starts with letting them know that I care about them as people, and I care about how they have success on the field, because that's where it all has to start. And from a recruiting standpoint, that's where it starts when you're recruiting a player. So it's really no different. It's a tough time of the year for them too, and being sympathetic to that and understanding kind of what they're going through, knowing what the pitchers I left at Wake are going through right now, and then having some empathy for that. It's a tough thing to do, and the main focus of sitting down and talking face to face instead of having a group meeting with everybody was just so they could look me in the eye, I could look them in the eye, and they knew that I'm genuine about, I do care about them as people and obviously as pitchers as well.
Dave, you had so much stability in your coaching staff in Nebraska, and then for so long here with Jordan and Butler. I wonder how much of a transition has this been, like an adjustment the last few years, having to change so many assistants?
Well, I mean, I just feel like that, we've had some quality coaches come here, and it's kind of what happens. I'm proud of those guys for where they're at now and what they're doing, and but for me personally, you start to build a relationship and you trust guys more, and then if you lose them, it's tough. But I think it's kind of the way it is these days, the sign of the times. And I want the coaches that I hire to want to either be a head coach or for us to to be at the highest level, be on the the cutting edge, to compete for championships. And we've done that, and so I know I'm going to lose guys, but keep them a couple years and they move on and we have a good 2 years with them, 3 years, whatever, hey, that's the way it is. We'll get the next guy. And I think most coaches and as athletic directors, that you've got to kind of have a network out there where you've got to figure out if something happens, who would you go to? And I didn't really have to worry about that for a while. I knew when, Coach Butler wanted to be a head coach, and he told me he was going to give me 5 years, and we kept him 7. In the last couple of years, I could really see he was antsy. It was going to happen. And, Wes, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I think it caught him off guard just a touch. But, like I said, it's the way it is. I think it's going to be that way at a lot of the big programs, the teams that are doing well, because ADs, other coaches, when they have openings, who are they going to look to? They're going to look to these programs where they feel like these coaches have done a good job, and we've been fortunate to have those type of guys in here. So I don't know, kind of tiptoed around your question a little bit. It's tough, but at the same time, it makes me happy for these guys, proud of these guys, and just go out and get another guy and let him work.
Matt, you mentioned destination job when you talked about here. Why? What do you know of Arkansas and Dave? And did you have any prior relationship that y'all met or talked before?
I'm about 1-20 in my career against Coach Van Horn as a player and a coach, so we have a little bit of history. But I've had a chance to play as a player against his Nebraska teams when I was at Missouri, and then as a coach, we played a midweek down here when I was at Missouri the year before we entered the SEC. Played a Tuesday-Wednesday series here and saw what it was like on a Tuesday, and it was amazing. And I could only imagine what that would be like on a weekend. And that day when I was down here, I was looking around at the stadium, and it was an average Missouri team against a really good Arkansas team, and the stands were absolutely packed. And I could just imagine what the energy's like on an SEC weekend, and then being able to kind of watch from that moment on, just kind of follow the program a little bit more closely, because I had experienced it firsthand. And I think the energy in the ballpark and just the energy of what the program does around the town, and how much people care about baseball here, and how much being in the SEC and being at a place like Arkansas means to people is as a place I would always wanted, to be a part of. So.
Just through recruiting and just observations, any Arkansas pitchers you're particularly familiar with, or you tried to recruit at Wake or anything?
At Wake Forest, we pretty much stayed on the eastern seaboard and the west coast. So, I'm familiar with the pitchers that are that we've been recruiting based on their national prominence more than anything. But we pretty much stayed in the Mid-Atlantic for most of our players, and then West Coast.
What's the next 2 months look like for you as you kind of get with these guys and kind of figure out what they have and then work towards February 15th?
So, one, putting a plan together, figuring out where they're all at from a throwing perspective, and that's kind of what yesterday was about a little bit, and what the next probably 4 or 5 days will be about is just figuring out from a health standpoint, checking in with the trainer, the strength coach, building some kind of synergy between the three of us first to figure out what issues guys have, if they have any issues, if there's anything we need to know about before diagnosing a throwing plan for these guys, and then obviously continuing just to get to know the pitchers better. That's something that it's the same as it would be with recruiting, is just trying to get to know them on a more personal level, figure out what makes them tick, what's important to them, then getting dialed in on what's going on from a recruiting standpoint, and also trying to figure out, trying to not have my wife go crazy. That's a big thing for me right now too. She's at home with the 3 kids right now trying to sell a house, so I'm going to be involved in that as much as I possibly can be, while giving 100% of my effort to Arkansas.
Matt, from a recruiting standpoint, Arkansas recruits nationally, but they're really strong in Texas, Houston, Dallas, up in Missouri, St. Louis, Kansas City. I wonder kind of where are you maybe comfortable, not isn't the right word, but kind of where are your ties recruiting, and how much have you recruited in those areas where they've been?
So I was at Missouri for 4 years as an assistant, so I recruited all those areas pretty heavily. We would do a pretty good job in the state of Texas. Wake Forest obviously gives me some experience on the eastern seaboard. I'm originally from California, so I've pretty much recruited the entire country and have ties really everywhere. I realize how well Nebraska, Arkansas does in the Midwest in these areas, and I think that's an area obviously that's going to continue to be incredibly important to hammer the areas that they're already doing incredibly well in. I think I can bring a little bit more of a wide base just because I have experience in all those areas.
Someone told me about a biomechanics lab that you had built at Wake. I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's a hardcore biomechanics lab. It's a motion capture system. There's 24 cameras, 20 in the indoor bullpen in the lab area, and then 4 markerless motion capture cameras in the outdoor bullpen, and then an indoor TrackMan, that's a stadium TrackMan that's inside the pitching lab, 2 Rapsodo machines, or one Rapsodo machine, and a full-time biomechanist. So it's a hardcore motion capture, it gives 3D kinematics of everybody's delivery, and it's incredibly special.
Is that something you can duplicate here, or can you bring it on a trailer with you or something? Or what do you do as far as that here?
I hope we can duplicate it. We're definitely going to try to do some things that are, pretty revolutionary in the new facility, I know, and then in the time being, bring the current facility up to speed with hopefully some cameras and some new ball tracking systems.
How much did that help?
We were kind of on the ground floor with it. We'd captured, by the time I left, we had captured about 6 times, and you're basically figuring out what's going on inside of somebody's body. So it's more than you can ever get from a video. It's more than you can ever get from video or TrackMan or anything along those lines. It's another tool. It's impactful. It's not the be-all, end-all of coaching, certainly, but it's like anything that that's out there these days. These are just tools we use to coach players, and help them reach whatever their full potential is and stay as healthy as possible. So it was impactful. It did help. It's not something that you absolutely have to coach, I don't think, but it's certainly something that can make a huge dent.
I wonder for both of you, this emphasis on biomechanics and analytics-driven coaching, over the last few years, really evolving. How much have you seen it change the game?
Well, it's changing the game. I mean, I think one thing that I like about it, some of the things we're talking about on the pitching end is we're going to be able to help some kids stay healthy. You're going to maybe figure out some things early, change some deliveries. I mean, can't go into detail too much there, but all you have to do is watch some of the games now. And we don't have the staffs like the big leaguers do, that all they do is they go back 5 years on where everybody's hitting where and hitting where, what type pitch, what part of the field, and that's all they do. And you're seeing the shifts and all kinds of things. Now, we can do that some. We don't have enough data, to be honest with you, yet. But it's definitely changing the game. It's still baseball. You still got to throw strikes and field the ball and hit. But you're just trying to catch an advantage here or there. Sometimes you can outsmart yourself, and you see that a little bit as well. So, we could talk about it for hours. It definitely changing the game, though.
I think it just adds, again, like I kind of said a little bit ago, it just adds more tools to the toolbox of coaching. And they're just things that help you become a better coach, I think. It lets you stretch out. It lets you, figure out things that you didn't know existed before. I think every pitcher has something inherent that is special about them, and it just helps you kind of dig into that and then bring that out of that player. And then also, like Coach Van Horn was saying, it helps you identify injuries. It helps you identify risk. It helps you identify things that might be precursors. So I think that it's changing the game in a positive way.
Dave, have you talked to Chad Morris yet about Connor Nolan, how he's kind of going to divide up his time leading into the baseball season?
We talked right before the season started, within like a week before they opened up. Connor was here yesterday. He was introduced to the team. Actually, I made him introduce himself like all the other players do when they get here, so there's a little stress involved there. Example, he's got to stand up in front of everybody and say his name, his hometown, his year in school, and what position he plays. And he did a great job. He's a good leader. But I guess to answer your question, I will talk to Coach Morris probably within the next few days. I know they're on the road recruiting and talking with a lot of their committed kids right now, so I'm trying to just leave them alone a little bit. But Connor will be on a throwing program maybe starting the next day or so.
What kind of role do you see for him? Or is it too early to figure that out?
Well, Connor, I saw Connor pitch after his junior year. Was the last time I saw him pitch. He was also doing a little 7-on-7 and, getting ready for his senior year football season. So, and I really liked what I saw. And then obviously some video from his senior year, and, he's done it. He's a good player. He's a good pitcher. And I guess his role, it's TBA. We'll see. If he wasn't playing football and he wasn't in spring ball, could he be a starter? It might be a little easier without all that. But I think to start off, it's going to be a hitter here, an inning there, and let's see it all, how it all develops. But physically, arm strength, mentally, there's a lot to work with there. So I think it's just up to him.
Matt, do you have experience with two-sport guys, football, baseball guys, and if so, how's that?
This will be my first one.
Do you have a philosophy about how to approach that, or?
I think we have to work through the kind of the strength and conditioning world, and what they need from him on the football field, and then what he needs to be able to do on the baseball field, and figure out what the best plan is for him. Like I said, this will be my first go around with a football player, but I feel pretty confident in my ability to kind of work through those things.
Hey Dave, the recruiting aspect with Matt, how much did that play into that, and then also the biomechanics stuff he's bringing, just kind of the well-rounded?
Well, it's a little bit of all that. If you look at his resume, he's in his 15th year as a pitching coach, and 12 of those have been at the Division I level. He pitched in the Big 12, so he knows that league a little bit. He coached in the Big 12, and he has 1 year in the SEC when Missouri moved over to the SEC, and now he's at Wake Forest, the ACC. So there's a lot of experience there. He's seen a lot of ballparks, seen a lot of different type of things, and the fact that he had been in the Midwest, he knows the region, and then the West Coast, because we've gotten some pretty good players out of the West Coast. We're working on some more right now, and he coached out in the southern part early in his career. He's from there. He knows coaches. Coached at San Francisco 1 year, so they're a little more northern, and has some ties there. So that could be big for us. It's you you think about, Ficacello and James McCann, and now we have Fletcher. We have a lefty in here from California right now that's going to be one of our better young pitchers. And again, we're working on some kids out there, and it could open some more doors. The way he coaches and, a little bit more of a modern approach. I mean, I'm all about that. I think that, like I said earlier in the opening statement, there's a lot of kids out there that's what they want. And so that'll be some of the things that, when we're out recruiting, we can talk to them about, and we'll let them come visit us and see what we got going on. Also, the fact that we're building a brand new facility where he's going to be in there from the ground up again to be able to set up that indoor pitching area. I mean, we've got a really nice big area right now. We're moving to the other side of the field. We'll bring in as much as we can now for him, and then obviously add to it when we move in that. So he's going to get to design our new facility. So he's got experience in that because they've just finished one at Wake Forest, and it's very nice.
Matt, you mentioned the dimensions of your old ballpark. Palm Stadium's a pretty big ballpark, I guess, compared to that. How do you feel about playing at maybe more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark?
I think, I never really looked at it like that, honestly. It was just where I was coaching. I think a bigger ballpark, I'm always in favor of a bigger ballpark for obvious reasons, being the pitching coach, but it didn't have too much of an effect on my approach, and I don't think it'll change too much in what I do.
What's your take on it? Arkansas obviously lost a lot of good pitchers to the draft. They got a lot of good ones coming in and coming back. What's your take on the talent level you're inheriting?
Based on the video I've watched and kind of what I saw last year in the World Series, watching it as a fan and being able to see some of the guys that are returning, it's pretty exciting.
Any more questions?
Dave, what happened on that loss? He said he was 1-20 against you. What happened on the loss?
The interesting thing, we had a little issue. When I was at Nebraska, Missouri is one of the teams we struggled with, and I don't know why it was. We beat all the, so-called Southern Big 12 teams for the most part. We had a little trouble with Missouri. I don't know why, but I think they beat us a few times. They won a couple series against us.
I remember it differently.
On Connor Nolan, going back to that, at OU last year, they had a similar situation with Kyler Murray playing baseball, being in the mix for starting quarterback, and he was doing spring practice and playing games at night. Have you guys talked about how that's going to work during the season? Do you foresee him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he's in the mix to be a starting quarterback next season, he needs to be out there. Our biggest concern is not with Connor and his work ethic, because it's second to none. I mean, he's very mature for his age. He's very strong. The biggest concern that we have to get right is the physical part. What do they want him to do in the weight room and all that? We're going to need to back off that upper body a little bit. We've got to keep him loose and healthy, and the strength coaches have to get together, the pitching coach, and we have to all be on the same page. And I think football is going to work with this. I mean, one reason Connor, selected the University of Arkansas, obviously loved it here, and he went to school in state, but he was recruited all over the country to do both. And it was a big part of his decision that we worked this out, that he could play baseball.
We didn't get to talk to you, or we talked a little bit in the press conference before this, but just having that official now with the new building and just everything that's going to go into making sure that's what you need, everything inside the building.
I mean, it's going to be a facility that's, honestly, it's about player development, and it's for the players. Yeah, it's going to help in recruiting because it's going to be new and pretty and all, whatever, bells and whistles, whatever you want to say. We always try to keep it blue collar around here as much as we can, but we need that. And what's going on in our league? We're recruiting against these schools mostly in the Western Division, and you've got a couple of schools in Oklahoma that are doing some things now. I mean, it's been a battle, but it's really for the players. Yeah, our offices will move over there where we can all be together instead of in two levels and different things like that. But there's just going to be a lot to show when we get a kid on campus. Not just the ballpark and how we've played. We're going to be able to. Our training room is going to. It should be second to none, and the kids are going to enjoy that. We'll have classroom, meeting room type area. Obviously, we'll have an area for the players to hang out, new locker room. But really, the strength and conditioning area is going to be something that we're really excited about, having it right there, strength coach sitting right there all the time. Might have what we're calling a champions area. I don't know what we'll name it, to be, something that might be open all the time. You just walk in and look around. Most hours of the day. On game day, we'll have all the memorabilia, team pictures, College World Series teams, videos. We'll see how that all works out, but it could be something fairly special. And, I think there's going to be a little bit more room out there for some fans and kind of wrap the ballpark a little bit more and close that corner. The first look that we all saw might have been a little too modern, and then they tweaked it again. And, I've gotten feedback on how it looked, but the architecture company that actually got the bid is not the one that drew the first one up. And I thought the first one, the inside, it's exciting, but it'll be redrawn. It'll be, there'll be different ideas, and I think it's going to be special. I think it's going to be, we want it to fit in with the ballpark. We don't want it to look different than the ballpark. We want it to look like it was built when this ballpark was built. So, but it's going to be about player development, and it might even be a situation where we have a locker room down there, and we also have a game day locker room up here. We're trying to figure out how to do that, handle that. That's been a big concern of a lot of people, and myself included. And I think that'd be state of the art. We had 2 locker rooms. We had one for the game day where they walk out of that locker room, head to that tunnel after they take batting practice, pregame stuff. They walk back to a locker room and hang out. They have to walk down through a gate and all that. Practice doesn't matter, but on game day, it's nice to have that feel. So,
Spring of 2020, is that the target on that?
yeah, I think right now, and obviously there's a lot's going to go on throughout the spring with the drawing, the rendering, just getting everything right before they break ground. But I would think that what I've been told is we're going to try to move in there maybe late fall of 19 now, this time of year, and be in there for the start of the, let me see, yeah, for that, maybe I skipped ahead of you there. Make that possibly 15 months. So maybe the 20 class, that's the way I think of things in recruiting. The 20 class would get to play in that probably in 21. We'd move in the fall of 20. Yeah, I was a little bit ahead of I wish, but I don't think they can build it that fast. I feel like that we're telling the 20 class, you guys will play your first season with that. You'll be in the new locker rooms and all of that late, maybe the fall of their first semester here.